Is the door open? Daddy! Is the door open? Daddy, do you know it's me? Do you know that I love you?
Yes.
Dad, I want you to know that I really love you and that no one will ever take me away from you. Please forgive me. It's gonna be all right soon. I'm here now.
Now, the whole story unfolds. Keep an eye on the video, never skip any part of it as you'll learn a very big life lesson. It's unfair if you don't subscribe after watching this far, like the video and share to family and friends. It'll make me and you so glad. How did Anthony get here? Let's watch as Ifeananya tells us.
Some dreams become nightmares the moment they come true. Anthony Criss stood at the edge of his retirement party in downtown Chicago, champagne glass trembling in his weathered hand. 26 years of American winters that froze his bones, of factory shifts that bent his back, of lonely nights in a cramped apartment dreaming of red earth and palm trees. But tonight everything would change. You're really going through with it, Dad? Ifeananya watched her father with eyes that held both admiration and fear. At 42, she had her father's stubborn jaw, her mother's intuition. And right now, that intuition whispered warnings she couldn't name. Anthony smiled, the kind of smile that belongs to a man who's made up his mind. My daughter, I have built a house back home. A beautiful house with 7 bedrooms and a veranda where I can watch the sunrise. My brothers and sister are there. It's time. Time. The word hung in the air like smoke. What Anthony didn't know was that his siblings had been counting down this time too. But their calculations were colder, measured in dollars and deeds, in property lines and pension checks. $5,000 a month. That's what his retirement would bring. In Nigeria, that wasn't just money, it was power. The airport scene 2 weeks later should have been filled with joy. Instead, it felt like a funeral where only one person knew someone was dying. Ifeananya held her father at the departure gate, her arms tight around his shrinking frame. Promise me you'll call every Sunday, Papa. Promise me. Every Sunday, my daughter. Stop worrying so much. Anthony pulled away, eager now, his eyes bright with anticipation. I'm going home. But as he disappeared through security, Ifeananya felt something cold settle in her chest. She should have held on tighter. She should have known. 12 hours later, Lagos welcomed Anthony with humid air and chaos, the beautiful, terrible chaos he'd been craving. And there they were. His brothers Emeka, Chidi and Obi, and his sister Ngozi, all smiles and embraces at the arrivals hall. Our American brother has returned. Emeka, the eldest, spread his arms wide. Come, come. We have prepared everything. The house was exactly as Anthony remembered building it. White walls gleaming in the afternoon sun, iron gates painted fresh green, flowers blooming in the compound. His American dollars had built this, his sweat and sacrifice. That first night they threw a party. Neighbors came. Music played. Palm wine flowed. Anthony sat like a king returned to his throne, and his siblings danced around him with smiles that didn't quite reach their eyes. Brother. Ngozi leaned in close, her breath sweet with wine. You must be tired from managing everything from America. Why don't you let us help? We can handle the small things, the pension collection, the bank matters. You just rest. Rest. That word again. That's very kind, Anthony said, because kindness was all he could see. After all, these were his people. His blood. What he couldn't see was Emeka and Chidi exchanging glances across the room. What he didn't hear was Obi calculating figures in his head. 5,000 multiplied by 12, multiplied by the years an old man might have left. The first Sunday, Anthony called Ifeananya as promised. Everything is wonderful, my daughter. Stop worrying. The second Sunday he called again. They take such good care of me here. I'm so happy. The third Sunday, Emeka suggested he shouldn't strain himself with phone calls. You need your rest, brother. She knows you're fine. And slowly, like a door closing inch by inch, the world began to shrink around Anthony Criss. The papers they asked him to sign for the bank. The keys they took for safekeeping. The portions that grew smaller at dinner. The conversations that stopped including him. The door that started locking from the outside. 6 weeks after his arrival, when Ifunanya called the house, Ngozi's voice was honey-sweet through the receiver. "Oh, he's sleeping now. You know old people need their rest." But Anthony wasn't sleeping. He was lying on his bed in the gathering dark, listening to his siblings laughing in the next room, wondering when exactly the dream had shifted, wondering when home had become a cage. What would you do if the family you trusted most became the enemy you feared? Drop your thoughts below, because Anthony's nightmare is only beginning. They say blood is thicker than water, but no one tells you that sometimes blood is what drowns you. 3 months into his Nigerian homecoming, Anthony Chris still believed he was living his dream. Oh, there were small inconveniences, minor adjustments, but wasn't that the price of paradise? The morning sun cut through his bedroom window in golden shafts, and Anthony stretched on his bed, feeling the warmth on his aging skin. This was what he'd worked for. This exact moment of peace. "Brother Anthony," Emeka's voice boomed from the corridor. "Come. We're having a family meeting about the new project." Project? They'd been using that word a lot lately. Anthony shuffled into the living room where his 3 brothers and sister sat in a semicircle, papers spread across the coffee table like battle plans. Which, in a way, they were. "Sit, sit." Ngozi patted the space beside her, her smile wide and warm. "We want to discuss something exciting with you." Chidi leaned forward, his voice earnest. "Brother, you've worked so hard in America. You've built this beautiful house. But think, what will your legacy be? We've been talking, and we believe your pension could do so much more." "More?" Anthony's brow furrowed. "Yes." Obi jumped in, his eyes bright with manufactured enthusiasm. "We could build rental properties, shops, a small plaza even. The money would multiply, and when you're gone, God forbid, many years from now, your children would inherit wealth, not just a pension that stops when you die." It made sense. Terrifying sense. "But I need the pension to live on," Anthony said slowly. Of course. Emeka waved his hand dismissively. "We would only use a portion. Small. And we would manage everything for you. You just rest and enjoy your retirement." There was that word again. Rest. "I don't know." Anthony hesitated. Ngozi's hand found his, her fingers gentle, her voice dropping to that tender pitch that reminded him of their mother. "Brother, don't you trust us? We're your family. Your blood. Would we ever do anything to harm you? Would they?" The question should have screamed inside his head. Instead, it whispered in Anthony. Lonely, tired Anthony, who'd spent 26 years dreaming of belonging, silenced it. "Okay," he said. "But I want to see all the documents." "Of course," they chorused in unison, their relief carefully disguised as joy. But when the documents came, they were dense with legal jargon, written in English so complex it might as well have been ancient Greek. And when Anthony squinted at them, trying to parse meaning from the maze of words, Emeka would laugh and say, "Brother, you're too educated for your own good. These are just standard papers. Nothing complicated." Anthony signed. He signed away his pension access. He signed property deeds he didn't understand. He signed his own imprisonment warrant with a pen that felt too heavy in his hand. But isn't that what trust looks like? Choosing to believe, even when your instincts beg you to run. That evening, his phone rang. "Ifunanya. Papa. I've been trying to reach you for 2 weeks. Why haven't you called?" "Ah, my daughter, I'm sorry. I've been so busy settling in, and your uncles say I should rest more, not strain myself with too many activities." Pause on the other end. "Papa, are you okay? You sound tired." I'm fine. Just adjusting. You know how it is. Let me come visit. I'll take time off work." No. The response came too quickly, even to his own ears. But Emeka had been clear. "Don't let them come yet. Let's get everything properly organized first. You know how young people are. They'll worry over nothing and create confusion." "I mean," Anthony softened his tone, "not yet, my dear. Give me time to fully settle. Maybe for Christmas, Another pause. "Longer this time." "Okay, Papa. Christmas. I'm holding you to that." When the call ended, Anthony felt something crack inside his chest. Something small but vital. He told himself it was nothing. He told himself he was happy. He was lying. The changes came gradually. like water rising around a man too proud to admit he's drowning. First it was the food. "Brother, we're trying to help you eat healthier," Ngozi announced cheerfully, placing a small bowl of watery yam porridge before him while the rest of the family ate jollof rice and fried chicken. "At your age, you must watch your diet. Too much rich food isn't good." Anthony's stomach growled, but he nodded. They were right, weren't they? He was old. He should be careful. Then it was his movements. "Where are you going, Uncle?" Obi would ask whenever Anthony tried to leave the house. "Just for a walk. To stretch my legs." "Ah, but it's too hot now. And you know this neighborhood not as safe as it used to be. Better you rest inside where we can keep eye on you." Rest. Safety. Care. The words wrapped around him like chains disguised as silk. His outings became fewer than rare than non-existent. His room became his world. And his world was shrinking. The phone calls from America started bouncing to voicemail. "Sorry, Uncle is sleeping. He's not feeling well today. The network is bad in his room." Always an excuse. Always reasonable. Always a lie. For months in, Anthony tried to access his bank account online. Error. Insufficient funds. His heart stopped. 5,000 had been deposited just last week. Where had it gone? He stumbled from his room, finding Emeka in the parlor watching a football match. "Emeka, my bank account. There's nothing in it. What happened?" Emeka didn't even turn from the television. "Oh, brother, don't you remember? You authorized us to manage the funds. We've put it toward the Plaza project. Very good investment. Don't worry yourself. But I need money for my medication for—" We'll handle it. Emeka's voice carried the edge of irritation. "Why are you stressing? You think we would cheat you? Our own brother. The words should have been comfort. Instead, they felt like threat. Anthony retreated to his room, hands shaking, mind spinning. When had he authorized everything? Those papers, had they said that? He tried to remember, but the details blurred together like watercolors in rain. Have you ever been so desperate to belong that you ignored every warning sign screaming at you to run? That night, Anthony lay awake listening. Really listening. Through the walls, he heard them talking. At least another 10 years of pension payments. The plaza will be finished in 6 months. He's getting suspicious. We need to. The words faded, but their meaning crystallized in Anthony's chest like ice. He was not a beloved brother. He was an asset. The confrontation came the next morning. Anthony, emboldened by a sleepless night of clarity, marched into the dining room where his siblings sat eating breakfast, a spread of bread, eggs, sausages, and fresh fruit. His own breakfast, he knew, would be cold pap and nothing else. "I want my account access back," he said, voice firm despite the tremor in his hands. "And I want to see the contracts for this plaza. I want my lawyer to review them." The room went silent. Forks paused midair. Eyes exchanged glances. A whole conversation happening in the space between breaths. Emeka set down his cup slowly, carefully. When he spoke, his voice carried a chill that Anthony had never heard before. "Your lawyer." A dark laugh. "Brother, you're not in America anymore. Here we handle things as family. You don't trust us." "It's not about trust. It's exactly about trust." Emeka stood, his bulk suddenly menacing in the morning light. "We've taken you in, fed you, cared for you, and this is how you repay us? With accusations." "I'm not accusing. I just want to understand. You're getting old, Anthony." Ngozi's voice, once honeyed, now dripped with condescension. "You're confused. You forget things. Maybe it's time you accepted that you need us to make decisions for you." Gaslighting. The cruelest weapon is making someone doubt their own reality. "I'm not confused." Anthony's voice rose, cracked. "I'm not senile. I know what I signed and I know what I didn't sign." "Do you?" Chidi stood now too, and suddenly Anthony was surrounded by his siblings, their faces transformed. Where there had been smiles now sat masks of cold calculation. "Because from where we're standing, you're an old man who can barely remember what he ate for breakfast. An old man who abandoned his family for 26 years, and now expects to come back and question how we do things. I sent money. Every month I sent money." Obi laughed, bitter and sharp. "You think money replaces presence? You think your American dollars erased the years you left us here to struggle. And there it was. The truth beneath the pretense. The rot under the smile. They didn't love him. They resented him. And now they were taking payment for every imagined slight, every year of perceived abandonment, every moment of envy that had festered in his absence. I want to leave, Anthony whispered. Leave. Emika's smile was terrible. Brother, you're not well. You're clearly confused, agitated. We can't let you wander around in this state. For your own safety, you need to rest. I don't need. But Emika's hand was already on his shoulder, grip iron tight, steering him back toward his room. We'll bring you some food. You'll feel better after you rest. Let me go. Let me. The door closed. The lock clicked. And Anthony Chris, who had built this house with his own sweat and dollars, became a prisoner in his own home. The room was modest. 10 by 12 feet. A bed, a small table, a window too high to climb through. This had been meant as a guest room, somewhere for visitors to sleep peacefully. Now it was a cell. Anthony pounded on the door until his fists ached. He shouted until his voice went hoarse. He heard footsteps pass by, heard voices, heard life continuing on the other side of that locked door as if he didn't exist. As if he'd already died. Hours passed. The sun traced its arc across the sky, visible only through that high window. A reminder of a world he could no longer reach. When the door finally opened, it was Ngozi carrying a small plate. Gary and watery soup. Barely enough to feed a child. Eat, she said, her voice flat, emotionless. The sister who had once braided his hair when they were children was gone. In her place stood a stranger. Ngozi, please. Eat and be quiet. The neighbors don't need to hear you making a scene. A scene? I'm locked in a room. You're being protected. She set the plate down and Anthony saw it then, the complete absence of guilt in her eyes. She'd convinced herself this was justified. They all had. How do people transform from family to monsters? Is it sudden or does evil grow slowly, fed by resentment and greed? The door closed again. Locked again. Anthony stared at the meager meal and wept. The days blurred together. Wait. Eat the small portions they brought, if they brought anything at all. Listen to sounds of construction outside. His pension, he realized, was funding something. Probably that plaza they'd mentioned. They were building their future on the foundation of his suffering. He tried calling out to neighbors through the window, but his room faced the back of the compound, away from prying eyes. And even if someone heard, what would they do? Challenge the man's own family? In a culture where family business stayed family business, Anthony was invisible. His phone had been confiscated weeks ago. You kept trying to call America, worrying your children unnecessarily, Emika had said, pocketing it. Every Sunday he heard Ngozi on the phone. Yes, he's fine. Just resting. No, the network is bad in his room. Yes, I'll tell him you called. Lies. Comfortable lies that kept Ifunanya across an ocean while her father withered like a plant denied water. Months passed. Anthony lost count after a while. Time became meaningless when each day was identical to the last. Wake, stare at walls, eat barely enough to stay alive, sleep fitfully, repeat. His clothes began to hang loose. His cheeks hollowed. His eyes, once bright with dreams of home, became empty windows to a crushed soul. Sometimes he thought about his life in America, the cold, yes, the loneliness, yes, but also the dignity. He'd had an apartment. He'd had freedom. He'd had choice. He'd traded it all for this. The cruelest prisons are the ones we choose to enter, believing them to be home. One evening, approximately 8 months into his captivity, Anthony heard raised voices outside his door. He looks too thin. What if someone sees him? Who's going to see him? We keep him inside. But what if he dies? What do we tell his children? We tell them he was old, that it was natural. They're in America. They can't prove anything. Anthony's blood ran cold. They were discussing his death. Casually, like planning dinner. He wasn't just imprisoned. He was being slowly eliminated. That night, Anthony made his first serious attempt at escape. He pushed the table beneath the window, climbed up on shaking legs, and tried to force the window wider. It barely budged, designed for ventilation, not egress. He pushed harder. Something popped in his shoulder, pain radiating down his arm. He bit back a scream and pushed again. The window opened another inch. Not enough. Not nearly enough. Below, he heard the door unlock. What is that noise? Anthony scrambled down, but his weakened body betrayed him. He fell, crashed onto the floor, his hip taking the impact. Emeka filled the doorway, his face twisted with rage. Trying to escape? Like some kind of criminal. He grabbed Anthony by his shirt collar, yanked him up. You ungrateful old man. We take care of you and this is how you repay us. Take care of me? Anthony's voice broke. You're starving me. You've stolen everything. Emeka's hand moved faster than thought. A slap that split Anthony's lip sent him sprawling back onto the floor. Watch your mouth. You're lucky we don't throw you out onto the street like the useless burden you are. The door slammed. The lock clicked. And Anthony lay on the floor, tasting blood, understanding with complete clarity. They wouldn't stop. Not until he was dead. Not until every last dollar of his pension had been extracted. Not until his house, his land, his entire legacy belonged to them alone. He was not going to survive this. Year 1 became year 2. Anthony stopped trying to escape. Stopped calling out. Stopped hoping. He existed in a liminal space between living and dying, fed just enough to keep his heart beating. Just enough to keep that monthly pension coming. Not enough to give him strength or hope or life. His bed became soiled because they wouldn't let him out to use the bathroom regularly. The smell became part of his reality. Stale urine, unwashed skin, despair. These were his companions now. Sometimes he heard his grandchildren outside. His brother Obi's children would play in the compound, their laughter floating through his window like mockery. Uncle Anthony used to bring us gifts from America, one said once. He's sick now, another replied. Papa says we shouldn't disturb him. Sick. Yes, that was the story. Not imprisoned. Not abused. Just sick. The construction outside his window continued. He could hear it: hammers, saws, cement mixers. His pension transformed into bricks and mortar. His suffering made solid and permanent. On what he thought might be his 67th birthday, he'd lost track of exact dates. Ngozi brought him an extra piece of bread with his watery soup. Happy birthday, brother, she said, and the casual cruelty of those words, delivered as if she were doing him a kindness, broke something fundamental in Anthony's spirit. Why? He whispered. Why are you doing this? Ngozi looked at him, really looked at him, and for a moment he saw something flicker in her eyes. Guilt? Remorse? But it vanished as quickly as it appeared. Because you left, she said simply. You left us here and made a better life for yourself. Now it's our turn. And there was the truth, naked and ugly. This wasn't just about money. This was revenge for a perceived abandonment. This was punishment for daring to escape the poverty they'd been born into. This was the price of dreaming. The phone calls from America became less frequent. Ifunanya, frustrated by constant excuses and runarounds, had stopped calling every week. Now it was every month, then every few months. His siblings celebrated this privately. She's giving up, Chidi said. She's accepting it. But they misunderstood persistence. They mistook silence for surrender. What they didn't know was that Ifunanya's silence wasn't acceptance. It was preparation. 22 months after Anthony Chris had returned to Nigeria with dreams of home and belonging, he lay on a bed that had become his world, a filthy, stinking mattress in a locked room in the house he'd built with his own money. His weight had dropped from 170 pounds to barely 110. His muscles had atrophied. His mind drifted between clarity and delirium. Sometimes he thought he was back in America at his factory job. Sometimes he was a child again, running through his village with his siblings, back when they'd loved him. Mostly he was just tired. So tired. He whispered his daughter's name like a prayer. Ifunanya! Ifunanya! Outside his door, his siblings counted his remaining pension payments, calculated his life expectancy, and planned what they would build next with his money. They had forgotten that Anthony Chris had not been just any man. He had been a father. And he had raised his daughter to be fierce, to be relentless, to never stop fighting for the people she loved. They had forgotten that while they'd been planning his death thousands of miles away, his daughter had been planning his rescue. They had made one crucial mistake. They'd assumed that because they felt no loyalty, no one else would either. They were wrong. And their reckoning was boarding a plane to Lagos. Can evil ever truly win when love refuses to surrender? Anthony's family thought they'd gotten away with everything. They thought his daughter had given up. But sometimes silence isn't acceptance. It's the storm gathering strength before it strikes. What happens when mercy runs out and justice comes calling? Keep watching, because the predators might become the prey. Justice doesn't always arrive with sirens and fury. Sometimes it comes quietly, on a daughter's determined footsteps, carrying 2 years of unanswered prayers. The Lagos heat hit Ifunanya like a wall the moment she stepped off the plane, but she barely noticed. Her mind was elsewhere, calculating, planning, preparing for war. 2 years. 730 days since she'd last seen her father's face. 24 months of excuses that had evolved from plausible to pathetic. He's resting. He's traveling. He doesn't want to disturb you. The lies had stacked up like kindling, and Ifunanya had spent the last 6 months building a fire with them. She pulled out her phone as she walked through Murtala Muhammad International Airport, scrolling through her notes. She'd done her homework. Nigerian elder abuse laws, international pension fraud statutes, contact information for 3 different law firms in Lagos, the American Embassy's emergency line, local police jurisdiction procedures. She'd even joined online forums for the Nigerian diaspora, learning the unspoken rules of confronting family in a culture that worshipped privacy and handling things internally. But what she hadn't prepared for was what she was about to see. Her taxi driver, a middle-aged man named Kunal with kind eyes and a Jesus air freshener dangling from his rearview mirror, made conversation as they navigated Lagos traffic. First time in Nigeria? No. Coming to see my father. Ah, that's good. Family is everything. He must be very happy you're visiting. Ifunanya didn't respond. She couldn't tell this stranger that her father didn't know she was coming, that she'd deliberately not called ahead, that every instinct screamed something was catastrophically wrong, and surprise was her only weapon. The neighborhoods changed as they drove, from the organized chaos of the airport road to the quieter residential areas. When they finally turned onto her father's street, Ifunanya's heart began to hammer. There. The house. The house her father had built with American dollars and immigrant dreams. The house that was supposed to be his sanctuary. It looked different, bigger somehow. She blinked, confused, then realized there were new structures. A half-built plaza next to the main house. Fresh construction, modern design, expensive materials. Her jaw clenched. She knew exactly where the money for that construction had come from. This one? Kunal asked, pulling up to the gate. Yes. Wait for me, please. I might need you. Something in her voice made him look at her sharply in the rearview mirror. You want I should wait inside the car? Yes. And if you hear shouting, if you see anything wrong, call the police. Can you do that? Kunal's expression shifted from curiosity to concern. Sister, are you in danger? Not me, Ifunanya said quietly, opening the door. But someone I love might be. She knocked on the gate. Once, twice, 3 times. A young man she didn't recognize, probably a neighbor's son employed as a gatekeeper, opened it, eyeing her suspiciously. Good afternoon. I'm here to see Anthony Chris. Who are you? I'm his daughter. From America. The young man's eyes widened, just a flicker quickly masked, and that tiny reaction told Ifunanya everything. He knew. This stranger knew something was wrong. Wait here, he said. But Ifunanya was already walking past him into the compound. Hey, you can't just. This is my father's house, she said, her voice steel-wrapped in silk. I absolutely can. The front door opened and Ngozi appeared, her face cycling through expressions like a broken slot machine. Surprise, fear, forced joy, calculation. Ifunanya, what a surprise. We didn't know you were coming. I know. Ifunanya mounted the steps, her eyes scanning everything. The expensive furniture visible through the doorway, the satellite dish, the new paint job, all while her father supposedly rested somewhere in this house. Where is my father? He's sleeping, dear. You know, he sleeps a lot these days. old age, and wake him up. But he needs his rest. I said wake him up. Ifunanya's voice dropped to a register that made Ngozi take a step back. Now, Emeka emerged from inside the house, his bulk filling the doorway, his face arranged in an expression of benevolent concern that Ifunanya instantly recognized as performance. Ifunanya, my dear niece, why didn't you tell us you were coming? We would have prepared. Where is my father? The air crystallized around those 4 words. Have you ever watched someone's mask slip? That moment when pretense crumbles and you see the monster underneath? Emeka's smile froze, then melted into something colder. He's resting. He's been unwell. We didn't want to worry you. Then you won't mind me seeing him. Actually, the doctor said he shouldn't be disturbed. What doctor? What's their name? Where's their contact information? Ifunanya pulled out her phone. I'd love to call them right now. Silence. That's what I thought. Ifunanya moved toward the door, but Emeka shifted, blocking her path. You can't just barge in here making demands. This is my father's house. The words exploded from her. 2 years of fear and frustration detonating. Built with his money. And I'm not asking permission to see him. By now, Chidi and Obi had appeared, drawn by the commotion. Neighbors were beginning to peek over fences, sensing drama. Listen, Ifunanya, Obi tried a softer approach. You've had a long flight. You're tired. Why don't you rest and later? Get out of my way. We can't let you disturb him when he's... Ifunanya's hand shot out, her phone's camera suddenly recording, pointed at all of them. This is being live-streamed, she lied smoothly, to my family group chat in America. So I'm going to ask one more time. Where is Anthony Chris, and why are you preventing his daughter from seeing him? The effect was instantaneous. In an age where everything could go viral, where reputations could be destroyed by a single video, her implied threat shifted the power dynamic. Fine, Emeka growled. But don't say we didn't warn you. He's... not himself. Not himself. The words we used to explain away inconvenient truths. They led her through the house, past the new television, past the leather furniture, past all the comforts purchased with her father's pension, to a corridor that led to the back of the house. The smell hit her first. Urine. Feces. Unwashed human suffering. Ifunanya's steps faltered, but only for a moment. Then fury propelled her forward. Ngozi produced a key, unlocking a door at the end of the corridor. The room beyond was dark, the air thick and fetid. Ifunanya's hand found the light switch. And her world ended. The discovery. The man on the bed couldn't be her father. Her father was strong. Her father was solid. Her father had broad shoulders and a booming laugh and hands that could fix anything. This was a skeleton wrapped in skin, a hollowed-out shell, a ghost wearing her father's face. Papa. The word came out as a whisper, a prayer, a scream all at once. The figure on the bed stirred. Slowly, painfully, the head turned. Eyes, her father's eyes, but emptied of everything except exhaustion, found her face. Ifunanya. The voice was a rasp, barely human. Is this... are you real? Or am I dreaming again? And Ifunanya broke. She rushed to the bed, fell to her knees beside it, her hands hovering over his body, afraid to touch him because he looked so fragile, so breakable, like he might shatter into dust. I'm real, Papa. I'm here. I'm real. You came, he whispered, and a single tear tracked down his sunken cheek. You came for me. Behind her, Ifunanya heard Emeka start to speak. Now you see, he's not well, we've been trying to care for him, but he's... Something inside Ifunanya snapped. She stood, turned, and the look on her face made all 3 of her uncles take an involuntary step backward. Care for him. Her voice was deathly quiet. You call this care? She grabbed her phone again, this time actually starting a video recording. Let the record show. Anthony Chris, American citizen, pension recipient, property owner, locked in a room, malnourished, lying in his own waste, imprisoned by his own siblings. You can't film us. Ngozi shrieked. This is private family business. Family. Ifunanya's voice could have shattered glass. You're not family. Family doesn't lock people in rooms. Family doesn't steal pensions. Family doesn't. Her voice broke. Family doesn't do this. Emeka moved forward, his hand reaching for her phone. Give me that. Touch me, Ifunanya said, her voice dropping to pure ice. And I swear to God, it will be the last thing you ever do. What transforms a person from victim to warrior? Is it rage? Is it love? Or is it simply the moment when fear becomes irrelevant compared to the need to protect? I'm calling the police, she said, backing toward her father's bed, placing herself between him and his captors. The police. Obi laughed, bitter and sharp. Do you think they'll care? This is Nigeria, not America. Here, we handle family matters internally. Then I'm calling the American embassy. My father is a U.S. citizen. You've imprisoned him. You've stolen his pension, international wire fraud. We haven't stolen anything. Chidi protested. He gave us permission. He signed papers. Did he sign papers to be locked in a room and starved? Ifunanya was already dialing. Did he sign papers to be treated like an animal? The first call went to the American Embassy emergency line. The operator answered on the third ring. This is an emergency. I'm an American citizen and I've just discovered my father, also an American citizen, has been imprisoned and abused by family members in Lagos. He needs immediate medical attention and protection. As she spoke, Emeka grabbed Chidi's arm, hissing, Get the papers. All the papers. And call Barrister Okonkwo. Now. But Ifunanya caught the exchange, and her next call went to the local police. Yes, I need officers at this address immediately. I've discovered a case of elder abuse and financial exploitation. The victim needs urgent medical care. You'll regret this, Emeka said darkly. You think you can come here from America and tell us how to handle our brother? Your brother? Ifunanya's laugh was broken glass. You did this to your brother? What kind of monsters are you? Behind her, Anthony stirred again. Ifunanya, don't fight. I'm tired. So tired. She turned back to him, her voice softening instantly. I know, Papa. But I'm here now. And I'm getting you out. I promise. They're too strong. They'll hurt you. Let them try. The police arrived within 40 minutes. A minor miracle in Lagos, but the magic words American citizen and U.S. Embassy had worked their charm. Two officers, looking bored and slightly annoyed at being pulled into what they clearly considered a family squabble. What is this matter? The senior officer asked, his English careful and formal. Ifunanya led them to the room, showed them her father. The boredom vanished from their faces. How long has he been like this? The officer asked, his voice suddenly sharp. 2 years, Ifunanya said. 24 months. They've been collecting his American pension while keeping him locked in this room, starving him. That's not true. Ngozi pushed forward. He's been sick. We've been caring for him. Then why is the door locked from the outside? Ifunanya held up the key. Why can't he leave? Why does he look like he's been in a concentration camp? The officers exchanged glances. This was bigger than a family dispute. This was criminal. We need to take him to hospital, the senior officer said. And we need statements from everyone. No. Emeka's voice boomed. We've done nothing wrong. The old man is sick. He's confused. He signed papers giving us authority to manage his affairs. Then you'll have no problem showing us those papers, the officer replied coolly, along with medical records showing his illness and documentation of how his pension has been spent. Silence. I see. In that case, I'm detaining all of you for questioning while we investigate. Justice, when it finally arrives, is rarely dramatic. Sometimes it's just a tired police officer doing his job, refusing to be swayed by loud voices and louder lies. What happened next would later blur in Ifunanya's memory. The ambulance arriving, the paramedics carefully lifting her father onto a stretcher, his hand clutching hers with what little strength he had left. Don't leave me, he whispered. Please don't leave me again. Never, she promised. I'm never leaving you again. But as they loaded him into the ambulance, Emeka made one last desperate move. He lunged forward, trying to grab Ifunanya's bag, probably hoping to destroy evidence, to grab her phone with its damning videos. Ifunanya spun, her elbow catching him in the solar plexus with a force born of 2 years of helpless rage. He doubled over, wheezing. "Officer!" Ngozi screamed. "She assaulted him. You saw it." "I saw a man attempting to assault a woman," the officer said dryly. "I also saw self-defense. Now all of you into the van. You're coming to the station." As the police van pulled away with her uncles and aunt inside, and the ambulance carrying her father raced toward the hospital, Ifunanya finally allowed herself to breathe. Kunal, the taxi driver, still waited by the gate. He'd witnessed everything, had already called more police when things looked dangerous, had stayed because sometimes strangers are more family than blood. "You need to go to hospital?" he asked quietly. "Yes, and thank you for staying." He nodded. "Some things are worth staying for. Healing and reckoning." The hospital room was clean and white, and everything her father's prison hadn't been. Ifunanya sat beside his bed, watching the 4 drip nutrients into his depleted body, watching the slow rise and fall of his chest, watching him sleep, truly sleep, for the first time in years without fear. The doctors had been grim-faced during their assessment. Severe malnutrition, dehydration, possible kidney damage, multiple infections from lying in unsanitary conditions, muscle atrophy. He's lucky to be alive. Lucky. Ifunanya had tasted bile at that word. There was nothing lucky about what had happened to her father, but he was alive. Barely, terribly, traumatically alive, but alive. Over the next 3 days, as Anthony slowly began to recover, both physically and mentally, Ifunanya built her case. The lawyer she'd hired was a woman named Adiz, sharp as broken glass and twice as cutting. "We have everything we need," she said, reviewing the documents. "Illegal imprisonment, elder abuse, financial exploitation. The American embassy is involved, which means the federal government will take notice. Your uncles are finished." The investigation revealed the full extent of the theft. Over 2 years, they'd siphoned nearly $120,000, building their plaza, starting businesses, buying cars, all while feeding Anthony scraps and locking him away like a dirty secret. The properties they built using his pension were seized. The accounts they created were frozen. The papers Anthony had signed under duress, signed without proper legal counsel, signed by a man who'd been deliberately isolated and confused, were invalidated. But laws and justice couldn't erase the damage already done. One evening, as Anthony sat up in bed, still thin, still weak, but with some light returning to his eyes, he finally spoke of it. "I thought they loved me," he said quietly. "I spent 26 years dreaming of coming home to them, and they were just waiting to destroy me." Ifunanya took his hand, this hand that had once been strong enough to work factory lines and build houses, now fragile as paper. "They didn't destroy you, Papa. You're still here. You survived." "Did I?" His eyes met hers, and she saw the depth of his brokenness. The man who left America full of hope, he died in that room. "I don't know who I am anymore. How do you rebuild a self that's been systematically dismantled? How do you trust again when your own blood betrayed you?" "Then we'll figure out who you are now," Ifunanya said firmly. "Together. But first you need to decide something. The prosecutor wants to know if you'll press charges. Full criminal charges. It means a trial, publicity, facing them in court." Anthony was quiet for a long time. "I'm tired of fighting," he finally said. "I know. But..." He squeezed her hand. "But they almost killed me. And if you hadn't come, if you'd waited even a few more months..." He couldn't finish the sentence. "Then let's make sure they can never do this to anyone else," Ifunanya said. "Not to you, not to anyone. Let's fight one more time, Papa. But this time you won't be alone." Slowly, painfully, Anthony nodded. Resolution. 6 months later, Anthony Chris stood in a courtroom in Lagos, leaning heavily on a cane but standing nonetheless. The trial had been brutal. His siblings' lawyers arguing he'd been mentally incompetent, that they'd acted in his best interest, that this was all a misunderstanding. But the evidence, the locked room, the medical reports, the financial records, the testimony of neighbors who'd heard him calling for help, was overwhelming. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s, looked at Emeka, Ngozi, Chidi, and Obi with undisguised disgust. "In my 30 years on the bench," she said, "I have seen many cases of cruelty. But what you did to your own brother, A man who supported you for years, who built a home to share with you, represents a particular kind of evil. You are sentenced to 8 years imprisonment for elder abuse, financial fraud, and unlawful imprisonment. Additionally, you are ordered to repay every naira stolen, with interest. As the guards led them away, Ngozi crying, Emeka shouting about appeals, the brothers silent and defeated, Anthony felt something shift in his chest. Not joy, not satisfaction, just release. The burden of wondering, of hoping they might somehow explain or apologize or make it right, that burden finally lifted. They were exactly who they'd shown themselves to be. And he was free of the illusion that had nearly killed him. 3 months after that, Anthony Chris sat on his daughter's porch in Atlanta, Georgia, watching his grandchildren play in the yard. He decided not to return to Nigeria. The house, his dream house, had been sold. The money would fund his medical care and his remaining years. He was 77 pounds heavier than his lowest weight. His hair had been cut and groomed, his clothes fit properly. He smiled sometimes, though the smiles didn't quite reach his eyes yet. Healing, the therapist had told him, wasn't linear. Some days were better than others. Today was a better day. Papa, Ifunanya came out with 2 cups of tea, sitting beside him. I got an email today. From a Nigerian journalist. She wants to write about your case. Says elder abuse is epidemic there, but no one talks about it. She thinks your story could help change that. Anthony considered this. His first instinct was to refuse, to hide, to protect himself from more exposure, more pain. But then he watched his grandchildren playing, safe and loved and protected, and he thought about other old men and women who might be suffering in silence, who might be locked in rooms by their own families, who might be dying slowly while the world looked away. Tell her yes, he said quietly. Tell her. Tell her that blood doesn't make family. Love does. And that sometimes the hardest thing is admitting when the people who should love you most are the ones hurting you most. Ifunanya's eyes filled with tears. I'm so proud of you, Papa. I'm alive because of you, Anthony said. You didn't give up. Even when I'd given up on myself. You kept fighting. That's what family does, Ifunanya said simply. Real family. And there it was. The lesson written in suffering but learned in love. Home isn't where you're born or where you build a house. Home is where someone fights for you when you can't fight for yourself. Home is where love proves itself not in words but in relentless, unwavering action. 2 years after his rescue, Anthony Chris published his story in collaboration with that Nigerian journalist. It went viral, shared thousands of times across social media, picked up by international news outlets, sparking conversations about elder abuse, about diaspora vulnerabilities, about the deadly combination of greed and opportunity. 3 of his siblings served their full sentences. The 4th, Obi, was released early for cooperation and genuine remorse. He wrote Anthony a letter, not asking for forgiveness, but acknowledging the horror of what they'd done. Anthony never responded. Some bridges once burned cannot be rebuilt. But he did find new connections. A support group for elder abuse survivors. Other Nigerians who'd experienced similar betrayals. People who understood the specific pain of being victimized by family. He started speaking first to small groups, then to larger audiences. His message was simple. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. And never ever be too ashamed to ask for help. His voice was quiet but powerful, carrying the authority of someone who'd survived the unsurvivable. And Ifunanya? She never left his side again. Her father lived in her guest house, not as a burden, but as a beloved presence in her family's daily life. Her children grew up knowing their grandfather's story, learning from it, understanding that love sometimes means fighting, and that family is defined by action, not just blood. On Anthony's 70th birthday, Ifunanya asked him if he regretted returning to Nigeria, if he wished he could undo that decision. He thought for a long time before answering. I regret trusting the wrong people, he finally said. I regret not listening to my instincts. But I don't regret learning, in the hardest way possible, what truly matters. I lost money. I lost time. I lost the dream of belonging to my birth family. But I gained something more valuable. The absolute certainty of who really loves me. And in the end, that knowledge is worth everything. Some stories don't have happy endings. They have true endings, endings where survival is the victory, where wisdom costs everything, where home turns out to be different than imagined but more real than dreamed. Anthony Chris survived because one person refused to accept convenient lies. Because one daughter loved her father more than she feared confrontation. Because sometimes justice does arrive late, imperfect but real. His story isn't just about betrayal. It's about the power of refusing to give up on the people we love. It's about looking beneath surfaces and trusting instincts. It's about the difference between blood and family. And it's about this truth. When someone you love suddenly becomes difficult to reach, when explanations don't add up, when your gut screams that something is wrong, listen. Because Anthony Chris is alive today only because his daughter did. Call to action. If this story moved you, I need you to do 3 things. First, drop a comment below. Have you or someone you know experienced anything similar? Have you ever had to fight for a loved one against impossible odds? Share your story because someone else needs to hear they're not alone. Second, subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications. These are the stories that matter. The ones that teach us, warn us, and remind us what it means to be human. Every subscription helps us reach more people who need these lessons. Third, share this video. Right now. Send it to your family group chat. Post it on your timeline. Because somewhere out there, someone's loved one is in trouble. Someone's instinct is whispering that something is wrong. And this story might be the push they need to act before it's too late. Elder abuse is epidemic. Not just in Nigeria but worldwide. It happens in shadows behind closed doors, hidden by shame and the belief that family business should stay private. But silence protects abusers, not victims. So break the silence. Share the story. Start the conversation. And if you're currently worried about an elderly loved one, if the explanations you're getting don't quite add up, if access suddenly becomes difficult, if something in your gut says things aren't right, trust yourself. Make the call. Take the trip. Ask the hard questions. Because the difference between tragedy and survival might be as simple as refusing to look away. Hit that like button if this story impacted you. Comment with your thoughts. Subscribe for more true stories that matter. And share this everywhere, because knowledge is protection and awareness is power. Thank you for watching. Thank you for caring. And remember, family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up when it matters most. Until next time, stay aware, stay vigilant, and never stop fighting for the people you love.